Herman Kane has just announced he is endorsing Newt Gingrich. Governor Sarah Palin joins us now. Governor, thanks for being with us this evening.
Hey, thank you so much, and that's big news that the Kane train keeps chugging along, and good for Newt garnering that support, and a lot of the supporters from Herman Kane. It's going to be beneficial.
Well, certainly, I think one of the few, national individuals who endorse Newt Gingrich. But let's go back a little bit. Now, why do you think that Ronald Reagan would be ashamed of Republicans now?
Well, Ronald Reagan wasn't afraid to take on sitting members of his own party who were in office in the 70s. He challenged a sitting Republican, and he knew, though, that the politics of personal destruction just ultimately hurt the cause of conservatism. So when we see today what happened there in Florida over this last week, it really has gone beyond the pale. It's gone beyond just aggressive and fair campaigning against an opponent, and it has been this engagement in the politics of personal destruction. As Rick Santorum, he pointed out, Romney drew first blood, and at first Newt Gingrich didn't respond. He wanted to take the high road. He publicly announced his intentions to take the high road. But when you're continually hit and bombarded with negative rewritten history about yourself and your record, you have to hit back, and that's what we saw Newt Gingrich engage in. And then from there, Judge, it got even worse with those in the establishment who don't want to see things shaken up and changed in Washington, D.C., so they came out so aggressively against that agent of change who has promised to shake it up, and that's been Newt Gingrich.
Well, I think that, the argument as to who drew blood first is something that, all the candidates would disagree about. But at the same time, Governor, don't you think that in facing Obama in the November election, that these guys really need to get up there and toughen it out and be able to defend themselves, get this news out there so that when they run, people will say, oh, I heard that 6 to 8 months ago?
That is why I have been the proponent of continuing this vetting process and the aggressive debate that should be fair, though, but healthy debate that our country, the electorate, will benefit from. That's why I say when I hear pundits on this network and other networks gleefully proclaiming that it's all over by Florida, despite the fact that 47 states until today have not even been able to chime into this process yet. We've only seen 3 states have either a caucus or a primary process to help choose a nominee. We see these pundits and politicos, elites in a faraway Washington, D.C., this beltway, telling the electorate that, hey, by Florida, it's going to be all wrapped up and we'll have our nominee. And I'm saying, no, don't let that happen, because they do need to toughen up. They need to debate these ideas so that we elect, through our nominating process, the best candidate to come up against Barack Obama and his failed policy. That's why I say, these folks who want to shut it down in this speedy process, say by Florida, and are saying, well, if Romney's elected, then it's over, we have our nominee and we'll go forward. I say, no, I want to keep hearing from Santorum and why it is that he is insistent on repealing Obamacare, and knowing that Romney Care was the precursor and the model for Obamacare. So Santorum and his debate points about, why would you support the architect of Obamacare? Maybe you want to look at somebody else. I want to hear from Ron Paul, continue to hear from him about how, as this nation spins itself into oblivion, we will become slaves to other countries. How, yes, we got to audit the Fed and quit experimenting through QE 2 and now 3, and we need to understand that this debt to GDP ratio that's now 100%, how that will bankrupt our country. I want to hear more from Newt about that Reagan revolution that he was a part of, and how it shook up the establishment back then, and how it can do that again, and that's what we need. And I want to hear more from Romney. I want to hear more about not being ashamed of his personal financial wealth, how that can benefit others, how that can create jobs if you worked hard for that money in ethical fashion. I want to hear from all of them. I don't want the process to end yet.
Okay. All right. When you talk about the vitriol, here is, by the way, Newt Gingrich talking to our Greta about the vitriol and the anger in the campaign. Let's take a look.
I think the prospect of Gingrich actually becoming president for the old guard is horrifying. I mean, they're all comfortable, they're all set in their ways, they're all part of an establishment. I come along, I'm a genuine populist. I know enough about Washington to change it, and I'm distanced enough from Washington to change it, and I think they find that a nightmare.
How can Newt Gingrich distance himself and say that he's not an insider when there are those who would say he's the consummate Washington insider? I mean, he was Speaker of the House and he was in Congress for 20 years.
Yeah, and how can he say that he's not a part of the establishment? Well, look at the players in the establishment who are fighting so hard against him. They want to crucify him because he's tapped into that average, everyday American Tea Party grassroots movement that has said enough is enough of the establishment that tries to run the show and tweak rules and laws and regulations for their own good and not for our nation's own good. Well, when both party machines and many in the media are trying to crucify Newt Gingrich for bucking the tide and bucking the establishment, that tells you something. And I say, and you got to rage against the machine at this point in order to defend our republic and save what is good and secure and prosperous about our nation. We need somebody who's engaged in sudden and relentless reform and isn't afraid to shake it up, shake up that establishment. So, if for no other reason, rage against the machine, vote for Newt. Annoy a liberal, vote Newt. Keep this vetting process going. Keep the debate going. As more debate happens, Judge, we'll hear more from Newt and from the other candidates who will oppose his position as he claims that he's not part of the establishment. Let's hear more about it.
All right, I want you to take a look at another clip. Here's when Greta talked to Newt about the moon proposal.
Why are people laughing at your moon idea?
And it's the very reason I'm running. We've gone through a period of decay as a country where we lack self-confidence, we lack a romantic vision of being an American, we lack connection with American exceptionalism.
All right, Governor, how does a fiscal conservative like yourself support a candidate who wants to make the moon essentially the 51st state? Isn't that expensive?
I'm sure it is an expensive proposition, as it was in the 60s to even travel to the moon, and yet JFK had that, not just a romantic notion, but a notion that America would be first, that we would win, that it was necessary for our psyche and for science and for so many reasons that we be the first at some exploration, and I believe that that's what Newt is explaining to the public today. There is nothing wrong with those grandiose ideas. It is a matter of priorities. Every politician I've ever heard from on a national stage has some ideas that maybe sound a little bit like they're off their rocker when they propose them, but it does come down to priorities. I know that we're spending a heck of a lot of money today, even small sums that add up, though, on things that I think are harebrained, like the cowboy poetry that Congress still supports today that's going on in Nevada. And I could give you many, many examples of ridiculous things that our nation has to fund via taking money from taxpayers. There's a lot of things that have to do with the priorities of Congress and what actually will be funded. I don't think there's anything wrong, though, with dreaming big in our nation, because that is how America became an exceptional nation. We thought big, we thought winners, and I want to see that continue, too.
All right, Governor. Now, I asked my Twitter followers what they wanted me to ask you, and I'm at Judge Jeanine, and here's one for you. Jeff Campbell asks, which candidate has the best chance of beating Obama?
Well, I would answer which candidate who is most passionate about the sudden and relentless reform that's needed. Which candidate understands that government is not the answer, not on a state level, say when it comes to mandating what level of health care you must purchase, or on a national level. And I think that comes down to who can articulate their ideas, their solutions best. And in a campaign, the way you articulate that is in a debate. And I've appreciated, again, Newt Gingrich's his style in debates, his his thinking, his way of explaining what it is that he stands for. So I think that in a debate, Newt Gingrich would clobber Barack Obama, and that's one step closer to the voters being able to have a tool to make up their mind whether it should be Barack Obama or the GOP nominee.
Sounds like an endorsement to me, Governor. Have you just endorsed Newt Gingrich?
I've said for many weeks now, I want to continue the process of the vetting.
But you said he's the one who has the best chance of beating Obama.
Because the math is the math. And
the math is showing us. The math is that Mitt Romney is the strongest against Obama, and even Santorum beats Newt in terms of the math.
And that's at this point without the vetting process continuing and without the debates continuing, which I would like to see. The math is the math, and the math shows us today that Romney and Newt are very close. Now, if as the pundits are telling us, those elites who want the better of us, who want us to just obey them and listen to them, who want to shut this down.
Up against a hard break, Governor. Governor, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're up against a hard break. Anyway, should this